normally read from the book I wrote to teach world history to homeschoolers. A Bible believer looks at world history. Today, I'm still on the Russian Revolution as kind of a side thing, and I'm using my phone today because I can't get YouTube to go live on my computers. So I wanted to use my phone to make sure it wasn't a problem on my account, and it's not. So it's working on my phone. So in any event, let's begin, and I'm going to hopefully finish up today. So communist countries of the 20th century were cults of personality, where a strong man and the apparatus that supported him ruled like a king under a different name. Before I can begin, let me just let you know that if you want to purchase my book, you can buy it on lulu.com, amazon.com, or the Bible Baptist Bookstore, or follow me here. Or just subscribe to my channel if you'd like to. So yesterday, or the last time I did world history, I'm sorry, I tripped over the word abolishment. I don't know why, just old age, I'll just write it off to that. But in any event, let's get back. So Russia had no tradition of democratic, that's small d, government. It was an empire where government and religion were united into one, which beat the poorest of people mercilessly and provided the leadership every religious excuse for the oppression it imposed on the people, thus making religion as distasteful to many as the totalitarian state it supported. I'm going to divide modern Russian history practically rather than philosophically. I'm going to base my comments on the men who led the Russian Empire, which became the Soviet Union. First, Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov, alias Lenin or Vladimir Lenin, came from an upper middle class background. His older brother, a revolutionary and avowed terrorist mentioned earlier, was executed in 1887, prompting Lenin to become a revolutionary socialist. Lenin was expelled from Kazan Imperial University for protesting against the Russian government, which was ruled by a czar, an emperor, and a class of nobles. The czar, it was the emperor. It was a very oppressive government and ruthless. He finally finished college and received a degree in law. Moving to St. Petersburg in 1893, he practiced law briefly and became a strident Marxist activist. This resulted in his arrest for sedition and exile to southern Siberia. There he married Nadezhda Krupskaya, a child of aristocracy that had descended into poverty. She embraced Marxism for social justice, although she would have not used that term. She was permitted to join Lenin in exile as long as they married. After the sentence was over, they moved out of Russia to Western Europe, and there Lenin became an important theorist for the Russian Social Democratic Party, not the first Marxist group in Russia, but one that bound various, but not all, revolutionary organizations together. In 1903, the party split into two groups, the majority party or Bolsheviks and the minority party or Mensheviks. Lenin led the Bolshevik faction. The two factions differed on what constituted party membership, and actually the Mensheviks were the larger group, but the reason for the Bolsheviks being called a majority is not important to this study. Following the failed Russian Revolution in 1805, Lenin campaigned for a European-wide revolution, which in his belief as a Marxist would result in the overthrow of capitalism and its replacement with socialism. Lenin saw World War I as vital to making this revolution happen. Following the February 1917 events, which resulted in the end of the 100-year-old rule of the Tsars, Kaiser, another name for emperor, Wilhelm II provided a train to return Lenin to Russia to further the Russian Revolution, which he saw as vital to keep a chaotic Russia out of the war against his German Empire. Destabilizing Russia was basic to his strategy. Lenin would go on to play a huge role in the October Revolution, which overthrew the government that followed after the fall of the Tsar. Initially, Lenin's Bolsheviks shared power with other leftist parties and activists, but within a year, the power had become consolidated into the Communist Party. Lenin ruled through the Bolshevik government and redistributed redistributed land to the peasants, and nationalized industry and banks. Wall Street and foreign investors had banked heavily on the emerging Russia after the Tsar, but Lenin did something that sent shockwaves through the investment community worldwide by repudiating Russia's debt. If you consider inflation over the decades, this was the biggest sovereign debt default in history without any restructuring. The money was just gone. Surprisingly, Wall Street bankers illegally funneled Russia gold into the U.S., assisting in the freeing of the revolutionary Trotsky and bankers who publicly spoke of free enterprise, privately financed communism. Lenin withdrew from the First World War by signing a treaty conceding territory to his benefactor, Imperial Germany, and the Central Powers. This was one of the reasons for the invasion of Russia by the United States, Britain, and Japan, and the Czechoslovak Legion, a volunteer army of Czechs and Slovaks, from 1918 ending in 1922, when the last of the League, Japan, withdrew. One of their goals was to help the White Russians, or Tsarist forces, who were anti-Soviet against the Red for communist Bolsheviks. At the same time, Lenin's government instituted what is called the Red Terror. This was a campaign of political terror and persecution, including executions played out by the Cheka, the Bolshevik secret police. Some have estimated that upwards of 1 million people were executed. This was clearly a regime based in terror and fear. In 1922, a treaty among various entities of the former Russian Empire, including the Ukraine, united them as the Soviet Union, or Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, reestablishing the Russian Empire in a different economic basis and form, although Lenin's government did reintroduce some forms of private property and capitalism. Lenin died in 1924, possibly of syphilis, but his body was placed on display and possibly still is embalmed for the ages. We're going to stop there, and we're going to get back into the book itself. Bible Believer Looks at World History, and I hope that I can figure out how to work this going live from my phone. Hopefully, you'll be interested enough to study world history on your own. Even if you disagree with my conclusions or think I've made a misstatement of fact or something that you think I should have done differently, that's great. That means you're interested in world history, and that's the focus, okay? So thank you, and have a good day.